Everyone in the boardroom erupted in laughter when the white CEO pointed at the black janitor's quiet teenage son and declared, "If you can crack this algorithm, I'll personally fund your MIT application." They expected him to stammer and retreat. Instead, he calmly approached the massive digital display. What happened next left every programmer speechless. But buried beneath the code and calculations was a family secret, so explosive it would bring down Silicon Valley's most powerful empire and expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government. Before we dive in, smash that like button and drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. Your engagement fuels these incredible stories. Now, let's begin. The tension in the glass-walled conference room of Nexus Technologies could be cut with a knife. Located in the heart of Austin's tech district, the building scraped the Texas sky like a monument to digital dominance. Inside the executive boardroom on the 47th floor, the air hummed with desperation and barely contained panic. Engineers in designer hoodies clustered around a wall-mounted screen displaying lines of code that had stumped the entire development team for 3 weeks straight. At the center of the chaos stood their latest creation, an AI security protocol worth $500 million in government contracts. It was supposed to be unhackable, revolutionary, the future of national cybersecurity. Instead, it had become their nightmare. Every attempt to activate the system resulted in the same maddening error message: access denied, authorization insufficient. The Pentagon was breathing down their necks, investors were pulling out, and heads were about to roll. CEO Jonathan Blackstone, a tall white man with steel-gray eyes and a voice that could freeze blood, stood at the head of the mahogany table, his patience wearing thinner than paper. His gaze swept across the room of defeated faces before landing on something that sparked a cruel idea. In the corner, quietly emptying trash bins, was Samuel Washington, a middle-aged black man who had cleaned these offices for nearly 2 decades. Beside him stood his son, a lanky 17-year-old with intelligent eyes hidden behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Maybe we should ask our custodial staff," Blackstone announced with a smirk that made several executives shift uncomfortably. "Samuel, your boy there looks smart. What's his name again?" "Darius," Samuel replied quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. He tried to signal his son to stay back, but it was too late. Blackstone's smile turned predatory. "Darius, perfect. Tell you what, kid, if you can solve what my $200 an hour programmers can't, I'll not only write you a recommendation letter to MIT, I'll pay your full tuition." The room exploded in laughter. Phones came out to record what they assumed would be an embarrassing moment, and someone in the back whispered, "This should be good." But Darius didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. Instead, he looked at his father, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. Then he looked at the screen, and something shifted in his expression. Without a word, he walked forward, his worn sneakers silent on the polished marble floor. "Can I use the keyboard?" he asked, his voice steady despite the snickers around him. "Be my guest," Blackstone chuckled, stepping aside with theatrical flourish. "Show us what you've got, genius." Darius approached the workstation and pulled a crumpled notebook from his backpack. The pages were filled with handwritten code, mathematical equations, and diagrams that made several programmers stop laughing and lean forward. He studied the screen for exactly 90 seconds, then his fingers began to dance across the keyboard. What happened next defied explanation. Lines of code flowed from his fingertips like water, each keystroke precise and purposeful. He navigated through security layers that had taken the development team months to construct, bypassing firewalls and encryption protocols as if he had designed them himself. The room fell silent except for the rapid clicking of keys and the soft hum of processors working overtime. "That's impossible," whispered Dr. Rebecca Chen, the lead systems architect. "He's accessing root directories that require level 9 clearance." "Where did he learn that syntax?" another programmer muttered. "That's not even in the documentation." Darius paused, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He glanced at his father, who had gone pale as a ghost, then back at the screen. With 3 final keystrokes, he executed the command. The error message vanished. The system came online. Every security protocol activated flawlessly, displaying a green system operational message that bathed the room in an eerie glow. The silence that followed was deafening. Darius stepped back from the workstation, wiping his palms on his jeans. His hands were shaking now, not from nerves, but from the weight of what he had just revealed. Blackstone's face had drained of all color. His voice came out as a hoarse whisper. "How?" "I wrote it," Darius said simply. The laughter that erupted this time was different, nervous, uncertain, tinged with fear. "You expect us to believe," Blackstone's voice rose dangerously, "that a janitor's son created a $500 million security system?" Darius opened his notebook and held up a page dated 3 years earlier. The code was identical to what they had just seen on screen, written in blue ink with annotations in the margins. "I didn't create your system," he said, his voice growing stronger. "You stole mine." The room erupted in chaos. Voices overlapped, accusations flew, and several executives began backing toward the exits. But Blackstone raised his hand, and the room fell silent again. "That's a serious accusation, son," he said, his tone now ice-cold. "You better be very careful about what you say next." Samuel stepped forward, his janitor's uniform suddenly seeming like armor. "He doesn't need to be careful," he said, his voice carrying a strength that surprised everyone in the room. "Because he's not just my son, he's also the son of Dr. Amelia Washington." The name hit the room like a physical blow. Several people gasped. Dr. Chen dropped her tablet. Even Blackstone took a step backward. "That's impossible," he stammered. "Amelia Washington died in a car accident 5 years ago." "No," Samuel said, his voice now steady as steel. "She was murdered, and you know it." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Darius looked at his father with new understanding, pieces of a puzzle he'd been trying to solve his entire life finally clicking into place. "My wife," Samuel continued, "was the most brilliant cybersecurity expert this country ever produced. She designed the original framework for what you're calling your revolutionary system. When she discovered that Nexus was planning to steal her work and sell it to the government without credit or compensation, she threatened to go public." Blackstone's jaw clenched. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually," Darius said, pulling out his phone, "I can." He held up the device, showing a recording app that had been running the entire time. "I've been recording since you challenged me. But more importantly," he tapped the screen, and suddenly every monitor in the building displayed the same message. "System compromised. Unauthorized access detected." Panic spread through the room like wildfire. "What did you do?" Blackstone roared. "I didn't just fix your system," Darius smiled for the first time. "I gave myself administrative access, and I've been uploading files to every major news outlet for the past 10 minutes. Internal emails, financial records, communication logs, everything that proves you stole my mother's work and had her killed when she tried to stop you." The sound of sirens began to wail in the distance, growing louder by the second. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, they could see black SUVs surrounding the building. "You see," Samuel said, his voice now filled with quiet satisfaction, "Amelia wasn't just a brilliant programmer, she was also an FBI consultant. And she taught our son everything she knew before she died, including how to gather evidence and how to bring down corrupt corporations." Blackstone lunged toward the computer terminal, but it was too late. The screens throughout the building were now displaying classified documents, financial transactions, and recorded phone calls that painted a picture of corporate espionage, government corruption, and murder that reached the highest levels of power. The conference room doors burst open, and federal agents in tactical gear flooded in. "Jonathan Blackstone," the lead agent announced, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, corporate espionage, and accessory to murder." As the handcuffs clicked around Blackstone's wrists, he looked at Darius with pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've just done," he snarled. "The people I work for don't forgive, and they don't forget." Darius met his gaze without flinching. "Neither do I," he said quietly, "and neither did my mother." The news broke within hours, sending shockwaves through Silicon Valley and Washington, D.C. The story of the janitor's son who brought down a tech empire went viral faster than any algorithm could track. Justice for Amelia began trending worldwide, and Darius's face appeared on every major news network. But the story was far from over. As investigators dug deeper into Nexus Technologies' files, they uncovered a conspiracy that reached into the Pentagon, the CIA, and the highest levels of government. Amelia Washington hadn't just been a programmer. She had been working on a classified project to protect national infrastructure from cyber attacks. When she discovered that her own company was planning to sell backdoor access to foreign governments, she had tried to blow the whistle. The car accident that killed her hadn't been an accident at all. It had been a carefully orchestrated assassination designed to look like a tragic mishap. But Amelia had been smarter than her killers realized. Before her death, she had hidden encrypted files throughout the internet, accessible only through a code that she had taught her son through bedtime stories and math games. Darius had spent years thinking his mother's puzzles were just fun activities they shared. He never realized he was learning the keys to unlock the evidence that would eventually bring down her killers. 3 months later, Darius stood on the steps of the Supreme Court, flanked by his father and a team of federal prosecutors. The Nexus scandal had led to the largest corporate fraud investigation in American history. 17 executives had been arrested, 3 senators had resigned in disgrace, and a Pentagon official had been charged with treason. My mother always told me that the truth has a way of surfacing. Darius told the crowd of reporters. She said that no matter how deep someone tries to bury it, it will always find a way to the light. Today, her truth has finally been heard. As he spoke, his phone buzzed with a notification. MIT had not only accepted his application, they had offered him a full scholarship and a position in their advanced cybersecurity program. But more importantly, they wanted to establish the Dr. Amelia Washington Center for Ethical Technology, with Darius as its first student researcher. That evening, as father and son sat in their small apartment, Samuel pulled out a box he had kept hidden for 5 years. Inside were letters, photographs, and a final video message from Amelia, recorded just days before her death. "If you're watching this," her voice said from the laptop screen, "then something has happened to me. But I want you both to know that I'm not really gone." "I'm in every line of code," Darius writes. "Every problem he solves, every injustice he fights. The work isn't finished, but I know he'll finish it for me." Darius wiped tears from his eyes and looked at his father. She knew, didn't she? She knew this day would come. Samuel nodded. Your mother was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. She knew they would try to silence her, but she also knew they could never silence the truth. And she knew that one day her son would be strong enough and smart enough to make sure justice was served. Outside their window, the Austin skyline glittered with the lights of 1,000 tech companies, each one now operating under new federal oversight regulations inspired by the Nexus scandal. The age of unchecked corporate power in Silicon Valley was over, brought down by a teenager with a notebook and the courage to honor his mother's memory. But in the shadows of the city, other conspiracies stirred, other secrets waited to be uncovered. And somewhere in the digital realm his mother had taught him to navigate, Darius Washington was already hunting for the next truth that needed to see the light. The revolution had only just begun,